Yo, what's up, everybody? Point of Attack football coming at you. This week, I want to talk about something I feel like is a pretty bold prediction. I know a lot of people laugh when I say it, but I'm going to talk about the Cleveland Browns, the 1-15 Cleveland Browns. This franchise reminds me a lot of the early 90s Cowboy team. I mean, right down to their record. In 1989, Jerry Jones buys the Dallas Cowboys for $150 million. And he brings in Jimmy Johnson. And the first thing they do is trade Herschel Walker to Minnesota. And that trade is widely considered as the greatest trade of all time because of what they got for him. You know, they got 7 draft picks, 6 players. And what it did for him was it gave him all those extra draft picks. So when they went into the draft the next year, they were able to draft, Emmitt Smith, Michael Irvin, Leon Lett, and everybody else that wound up being Hall of Famers on that team. So that first year, there were still a lot of growing pains. And like I said, they're just like the Cleveland Browns because they only won one game in 1990. But within 4 years, they were in the Super Bowl because every year they were getting better and better and better and getting more and more picks. Now, the Cleveland Browns are exactly like that. They got a new coach in Hugh Jackson, where I'm not a huge fan of Hugh Jackson as the head coach. He's a very good coordinator, though. Everywhere he's been a phenomenal coordinator. And Sashi Brown, the GM, is starting to turn that team around. And the same thing, they had 10 draft picks in last year's draft, which is absolutely huge. 3 first-rounders alone. And they made the smart picks with their 3 first-rounders. They take Myles Garrett first, who is absolutely phenomenal. The guy put up freakish numbers at the combine. And if you watched him play in college, he was an absolute maniac. Very hard to stop, very fast, very physical. He's going to bring a dynamic to that D-line that they've been missing because, I mean, they had the second to last worst defense in the league last year. So that's where they really, really needed to improve. And I think Myles Garrett is going to do that. So they turned around right after they got Myles Garrett, and they brought in Jabril Peppers from Michigan, who was up for the Heisman Trophy. And he was probably the best athlete in the draft because you can play him at multiple positions on defense. We still don't know exactly where he's going to play on defense. Is he going to be a nickel linebacker? Is he going to be a safety? Is he going to be a slot corner? He can play all those positions. He can return punts for you. So they are in phenomenal shape with who they're adding. And then they add also David Njoku, who's another really, really good player. And that defense, I think, is going to be much, much improved because they already had a guy, Christian Kirksey, who was top 5 in tackles last year. So they're already starting to turn around, and they're making smart picks. And that's the biggest thing. Right in the draft, they made a deal with Chicago, let Chicago move up and switch positions with them, and they got themselves another first-round pick for next year. So, again, next year they're going to have 10 picks as well, 2 first-rounders, 2 second-rounders. They look really good to build themselves up in the future. And you talk about them offensively. In the second round, they drafted DeShone Kizer out of Notre Dame. I'm actually a Notre Dame fan. I was not a huge fan of DeShone Kizer. I think he's a very great athlete, but he has a lot to learn about playing the quarterback position. But he can learn as long as he's willing to work hard. He can absolutely learn the position. They also have Brock Osweiler and Cody Kessler. So it's a wide open competition for who's going to be the starting quarterback. Right now they have Brock Osweiler. He's going to play the first preseason game as a starter. So we'll see how that goes. Isaiah Crowell at running back, he was almost 1,000-yard back last year, 952 yards. So he was right there. If you count his receptions, and he had another 40 receptions for, like 315 yards, he was over 1,200 yards all purpose. So, he's a good running back. They still have Joe Thomas at left tackle. So, he's one of the best in the game, hands down. So offensively, they're not a bad football team. Losing Terrell Pryor hurts at wide receiver, But they brought in Kenny Britt, who's, you know, another big, fast, legitimate wide receiver to go with Corey Coleman. So I think they'll be all right offensively. And the biggest thing you need to realize is out of all of their losses last year, 7 of them were by a touchdown or less. I mean, that means one play goes, you know, just a little bit different, and you're playing 500 ball at that point. You know, they've got 8 wins if they can just keep the mistakes to a minimum. And, you know, 10 of those losses were by 10 points or less. So they weren't getting blown out. A few teams did blow them out, but for the most part, they didn't. I mean, realistically, they could have been a 9-10 win team if, you know, little things during the game go a different way. So they're close, and I think they're going to be very, very good. And you know, on defense with Joe Hayden at cornerback, they could be all right. Overall, I just think that they're going to be a very good, improved football team. And maybe not this year. It's not going to show, like, they're not going to come out and, you know, win 10 games. That's probably not going to happen. If you look at their schedule, they've got a very tough schedule this year. So I can see them winning 6 games, though, and that's a start, because then next year, when they get 10 more draft picks, as long as they're making the smart picks like they did this year, and they're not taking the flashy name guys, and they're taking, you know, the legit players that can help them on the lines and on the defense, and, you know, not taking the flashy Johnny Manziel quarterback pick who, you know, turns out to be terrible. As long as they keep being smart and making the solid pick, this team can absolutely turn themselves around, because, like I said in the beginning, they remind me of the Dallas Cowboys. And, you know, they were the laughing stock of the league in '89. They won 1 game. And then, like I said, within 4 years, they were in the Super Bowl, and then they wound up winning 3 Super Bowls. And it was because they built the team the correct way. During the draft and in free agency, they brought in these smart, legitimate players, linemen to protect the quarterback, and then, you know, good running backs, wide receivers. You know, they made an all-around really good team. And the Browns could do the same thing. And they're in the driver's seat right now. That GM is in the best spot you could possibly be in, because he's got a ton of picks and he's already got a ton of very good core players. So I think the Cleveland Browns, within 4 years, are going to win that division. Yeah, I said it. I think the Cleveland Browns, within 4 years, are going to win that division because of what they're doing right now. And I know it's a very bold prediction, but that's how I feel. And teams do turn themselves around. And I think this is them turning things around for them. So be on the lookout for that. I appreciate all you guys watching. As always, you know, leave comments, questions, whatever it may be. Like to hear from you guys. So I appreciate it, and I'll catch you guys later. Peace.